So Labour's worst MP, Thangen Debonair, went on Sky News to talk about asylum seekers, and honestly, you'd be mistaken if you thought she represented UKIP or even the BNP. Take a look.
That backlog, which at the moment is costing the UK taxpayer £8 million per day. And a cost of living crisis in particular, that's unforgivable. But given that that's leaving people who may be a danger to this country, unprocessed, languishing, waiting for a decision, that's just not okay for UK security.
I cannot believe my ears. This is supposed to be a Labour MP, yet she is lifting pretty much verbatim the lines of Farage, Reform, and yeah, I do think even the BNP. Labour are attacking the Tories to the right of them. Now, Keir Starmer said yesterday that 4 years ago, they were a very different Labour Party. Now, this was the four-year anniversary of the 2019 election. I remember that day. I got pissed up, so drunk that I didn't turn up to work. Whoops, but I had my reasons. It was a very depressing day. Took a long time to get over it. I remember 4 years ago. I remember we had a Labour Party that stood against divisive politics, that talked about refugees in an empathetic way, talked about housing people, and treating everyone equally regardless of where they came from. Today, we have a party that is not only engaging in gutter politics, but are attacking the government for not being right-wing enough. Now, Debonair says that asylum seekers are too costly. We can't afford them. We need to send some of them back, and that they could be dangerous. I mean, this is just absolute dog whistles, joining in with the far right in whipping up fear against those who are in a far worse position than the rest of us. And it's just so incredibly transparent from Labour that they are only doing this to win. They are happy to legitimise really divisive politics and exploit it for votes. Now, Starmer troopers and Labour supporters always say, let them get into government first. They'll be better and nicer than the Tories. You know, if they win, they won't be as right-wing. First of all, I don't believe that. But even if that is true, what politicians say carries so much weight that it's just incredibly irresponsible. If you're a so-called progressive party agreeing with this sort of rhetoric, this makes it far worse because you've narrowed the debate so much that there are no mainstream voices that speak against it. So when we hear callous things from the government, you've propped up their arguments by agreeing with them in opposition. And if you don't believe me when it comes to the effect politicians say and their words having an impact, take a look at this.
Oh my God. Oh my God, this is disgusting.
Now, that was a video of tents that are being used by homeless people being destroyed in Camden after Suella Braverman called homelessness a lifestyle choice and wanted to bring in the policy of confiscating tents. Now, these never became policy, and Braverman, as we know, sacked. She isn't Home Secretary, yet her words have meant that homeless people have experienced an increase in attacks. Councils such as Camden are destroying tents. There was footage circulating online of a man outside McDonald's. He was attacked by a security worker. That security worker poured water onto his tent, a truly disgusting thing to do, especially with the cold temperatures. Thangen engaging in this rhetoric has deep consequences. And if you're like me, then you'll know this isn't just rhetoric. Labour, through wanting to stay in power, will most likely enact those policies in government too. Now, if you're familiar with Debonair, this is the kind of person she is. Labour has given the strongest sign yet that it has gone back on its new leader's pledge that he would introduce free social care if his party won power, after a shadow cabinet member said such a policy would be too expensive. Thangen Debonair told female party members at a meeting last weekend that introducing free social care for disabled and older people would give the Tories a stick to beat Labour with, Disability News Service has been told. Social care is absolutely crucial in this country. We have an aging population and we need to radically change the way we treat people with disabilities. But Thangen disagrees. She also stood with landlords over tenants by not supporting the cancellation of rent during the pandemic and instead wants tenants to repay them back after 2 years. She called cancelling rent un-Labour, accusing Labour of failing renters by potentially saddling them with hefty debts. The open letter to leader Sir Keir Starmer also called for tenants to be allowed to request a cancellation of payments if their income is hit by the virus. But Debonair, who took on the housing brief in Sir Keir's first reshuffle as leader, said the policy called Cancel the Rent is surprisingly un-Labour. It's a really regressive policy because, for instance, there are people who are still in work, still able to pay their rent, and if you just cancel rent, they would also benefit and they don't need to. Oh my God, renters could have a break? How awful. Plus, the open letter by many on the left of the Labour Party called for rent cancellation for those whose incomes were impacted, but she ignored that. Now, Thangham represents Bristol, my hometown, where I was born, but I think the city deserves much better. And there's an option, and her name is Carla Denyer, who is standing in Bristol West and is the co-leader of the Greens. Now, I've made it clear myself that I will be voting for the Greens. I mean, my MP is Hilary Benn, leader of the chicken coup, so it's not a hard decision for me. But I'm calling anyone and everyone on the left, whether you're soft left or a radical, whether you're a social democrat or a communist, I think you should vote for the Greens. I am so sick and tired of how right-wing Labour is, throwing minorities under the bus, throwing workers under the bus, and now asylum seekers. Labour are a party of capital and the rich, just like the Tories. We need an alternative. For those that call me a Tory enabler, I'm bored of it. Not voting for a party that's copying Tory policy that is 20 points ahead of the actual Tories doesn't make you an enabler. There's a reason why I hate the Tories. It's because of their policies, their ideology. If I see the Labour Party doing the same thing, I'm going to hate them too. I question those who uncritically support Labour who say they hate the Tories too. Why? What, because they wear blue rosettes? That's not good enough. You should oppose the policies that destroy this country, that destroy the working class. Now, a friend of this show, No Justice, went on Navarra yesterday and said, we need a UKIP on the left. And I completely agree with her. UKIP didn't win a single seat. It was only due to a defection by Douglas Carswell. Nigel Farage never won a seat in Westminster. Yet UKIP are one of the most successful parties in British political history. They moved the Tories to the right and got Brexit. Those that voted UKIP didn't call each other Labour enablers. They voted the way they wanted to vote. And it's time for us to stop being so scared. It's time for us to grow a backbone and give Labour a bloody nose they deserve. They are going to win the next election. But the choice is a huge majority where Labour will be as right-wing as they want. There'll be no external pressure. Or, look, and I know it's very difficult, but we can make Labour capitulate, make them worried about our votes. I mean, I don't know how realistic it is to deprive them of a majority, but fucking hell, it is worth trying. We were told, us socialists and social democrats, since 2015, that we were entryists, that we didn't represent Labour, that we were a disaster. Then, in 2017, we made gains with this kind of politics. Now, in 2019, yes, we had a crushing defeat. Yes, the left and Jeremy are partly responsible, but we also saw the biggest smear campaign I have ever seen. And ever since then, we've been told by Starmer and the rest of the Blairite clique that we aren't wanted. There's the door and fuck off. Well, that's what I did. And that's what a lot of you did. And if anyone kicks off at us for not voting Labour, well, we did as we told. We had a monumental opportunity with Corbyn as leader. And given that Labour will probably win, this is what I think anyway, Labour will win 2 terms on a centre-right manifesto, will be an ineffective government, won't change many things, then the Tories will come back and they'll get back in. And I'm not prepared to see another 2 decades of managed decline. And so many of us want to see something change. Look, I'm not a member of the Greens, and I think being a member of a political party, those days are behind me for a while anyway. But I think you should vote for the Greens, since, look, they seem to be the only realistic alternative that could see at the next election 4 or 5 Green MPs in Parliament. Now, there was a time when we would discuss whether staying inside the Labour Party and fighting from within was a viable option. That's no longer the case. Now, I still support people on the left if they were to remain in the party, but as a sort of stagnant role or staying in hibernation and waiting for the next opportunity. I think that's valid. But staying in for the purpose of changing it right now, it's futile. So given there's no choice, I think you should, as I said, you should vote for the Green Party. And if there's another party of the left you want to vote for, fine. But one thing is absolutely true. The Labour Party is well and truly dead, and they do not deserve our support.